Hi, I'm Seth Newbart, a lifelong collector of art, but also the CEO and founder of Provenance. We craft high-quality NFTs for artists, collectors, and gallerists. I also have a background in tech and usually enjoy explaining complex issues in simple terms, but I can tell you trying to explain NFTs to art collectors has been a challenge, and that's for two reasons. One, the concepts are very complex, and two, the concepts are new. If you think you can learn it on a 3-minute video on YouTube, you are mistaken. So please bear with me while I take a little more time than 3 minutes and explain to you about NFTs for physical objects and let you know why I think they are so important and why you should seriously consider them for your art. So let's start off with a strict definition of NFTs, which I'm sure you know stands for non-fungible token. An NFT is a non-interchangeable unit of data stored on a blockchain. Types of NFT data units may be associated with digital files such as photos, videos, and audio. We'll come back to that definition in a little bit and dissect it further, but there are two concepts we have to go over first. The first is the idea of a blockchain, and the second is the idea of a decentralized system, and specifically how those two terms relate to NFTs for physical objects. On the internet, there's two types of systems that can run. One is a centralized system, and the other is a decentralized system. Examples of centralized systems are things like Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google. These all run on the internet, which is decentralized, but they are centralized, meaning they are being run by a company, and the company has a CEO, the company has employees that can go in and access the data, change it, and delete it. It's easiest to explain the difference between centralized and decentralized with an example. Let's say I have a company and I have an employee named Peter Smith. If I go to my home computer and open a file, Microsoft Word, let's say, and type out, Peter Smith has always been a great employee, I can store that on my own computer and keep that within this centralized system. But if I take that same message and make it as an attachment to an email and send it out to 300 of my employees, now they all have it, open it up, receive it, and it's time-stamped and archived with 300 different people. So let's say one day I want to fire Peter Smith, let's say 2 weeks later. I can't change what I said. I cannot write Peter Smith has always been a terrible employee because there's 300 people that have it. It's been decentralized. So when you have a system that is decentralized, you automatically add in a certain integrity to the message, to the data, because it is protected by the fact that it's been dispersed among 300 people. The internet, by definition, is a decentralized system. It's worldwide and open for everybody. And the definition of that would be an interconnected information system where no single entity is the sole authority. That's great in theory, but over time it is becoming increasingly centralized. The internet has been dominated by big tech. So people thought, well, that's not very good. We can't put information in a place where other people can access it so easily. We need a place where we can have information that is dispersed and taking power away from a central location or authority. We need something that is decentralized permanently, someplace where we can put information that can never be altered, deleted, or copied. And that place is the blockchain. So we can define the blockchain as a digital ledger of information that is duplicated and then distributed across an entire network of computer systems. No central authority can control this decentralized system. And the blockchain is a system of recording that does two things. One, it takes the information and timestamps it. And number two, it takes the information and encrypts it. It is cryptographically encrypted, and that's how we got the term crypto when we refer to things on the blockchain, such as Bitcoin. So how does this work? The information is taken, encrypted, and put into a block. And the next bit of information, the same thing happens. It's encrypted and put into another block. But these blocks are lined up in sequence. And once the block is placed in the sequence, it can never be changed, altered, or deleted. So data within that block is secure forever. And those blocks, lined up one after another in a chain, are managed by a network of computers and not by a single centralized system. In very simple terms, you could think of this almost like what happened 2,000 years ago in the Hellenistic period, when the Egyptians took blocks of stone, lined them up, and took a chisel and inscribed within that information data that still is there today, such as the Rosetta Stone. However, unlike the Rosetta Stone, information on the blockchain is permanently stored in a fashion where it can never be altered or deleted. But is the blockchain secure and safe? Well, the same people that thought up the blockchain immediately realized this would be a great place to put money. Bitcoin and Ethereum are examples of decentralized architectures and systems that live on the blockchain. There's over $1 trillion just in Bitcoin, and institutions such as Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, HSBC, and Wells Fargo use crypto and blockchain technology routinely in their banking. Guess what? Besides cryptocurrencies, there's one other thing that lives on the blockchain: NFTs. In this case, it's the Ethereum blockchain. Besides having Ether, which is the cryptocurrency on the Ethereum blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain has the ability to carry NFTs. So you have these NFTs, bits of information, which are on this decentralized system, as secure as anything that's holding trillions of dollars in cryptocurrency, information that can never be changed, duplicated, or deleted. It is immutable. And you can link the NFT to either digital or physical objects and link them inextricably. So if you're trying to learn about NFTs and impress people, there's two words you've got to know and use as much as possible. One is immutable and the other is inextricable. Great words. Immutable is defined as something which is unchanging over time or unable to be changed. Inextricable is something that is impossible to disentangle or separate. So data on the blockchain that's immutable and inextricably connected or linked to an object is an extremely powerful and useful tool. Let's shift gears now and talk about titles, deeds, and invoices. When you buy a car, you get a title. And without the title, the car is not really worth very much. You can't sell a car without the title. So although it's nice to drive around in a Ferrari, without the title for the Ferrari, it's really not worth anything. Same thing with a house. When you buy a house, you get the title of ownership, which is manifested in a physical document called a deed. And again, without the deed, that property is not worth anything. With art, you get an invoice. Hopefully it's a paid invoice, but you get the invoice from the artist or the gallery where you bought it, and that proves that you own it. So the title, the deed, the invoices, these documents which we use, which is the standard way of recording, they do three things. One, they prove ownership. Secondly, they establish a history of ownership, which is the provenance. Who owned it? What did they pay for it? Who then next had it? And the third thing is they help establish authenticity, so that you can sell the item and get the highest price possible. So these paper documents, which can be in computer form, are good but not great. For instance, do you have a copy of the title to the first car you bought or the second or third car you bought? Do you have a copy of the invoice for every single piece of art you have? Probably not. Does the gallery where you bought it have it or the artist have it? You really can't count on that. But if you have the invoice in the form of an NFT, it would be living on the blockchain. It would be there forever. And it would be searchable and retrievable and public so that you could access that and prove ownership, prove the provenance, and help establish authenticity. And doing that is great. And that will increase the value of your art or any physical, tangible object of value. So let's review why this is so fantastic. Besides the NFT being unique, it's living on the blockchain, which is a decentralized system. It's public, searchable, permanently accessible, unchangeable, undeletable, and cannot be duplicated. Beyond that, there's one other giant piece. The NFT has functionality. And you may have heard the term smart contract. Some people actually call or define NFTs as a smart contract. Before we define smart contract, let's go back and revisit that definition of NFT. The key word to focus on is associated with. NFT data units may be associated with digital files. Non-fungible token, it's the word token that's important because a token references or represents something else of value. When you hear the word token, you may think of a subway token from years ago in New York City. That little piece of metal bought you a ride on the subway. Today we don't have those type of metal tokens, but we do have paper tickets for things like sports events and Broadway shows. It's just a piece of paper, but the barcode on that paper represents something of tremendous value, which is where you're going to sit or whether you're going to have a backstage access or access on the field for a sports event. So non-fungible token, same thing. It's a virtual piece of data, but it references or represents something of extreme value, which is your artwork. Non-fungible means it's unique, just like art. Fungible will be something like a dollar bill that you could trade with somebody else and it's all the same value. A dollar bill signed by the President of the United States is now more valuable and unique, and that's non-fungible. So since this NFT is now so fantastic, why don't we load it with tons of data all about the thing it's referencing? Well, you can't. You can't because the blockchain doesn't hold a lot of information. It's super expensive. So the NFT is just going to give you links to a larger file, which is outside of the blockchain. It still can be on a decentralized system, and in this case, it's called the IPFS, which is the Interplanetary File System, but it is not the blockchain. The NFT references through links metadata, which is large quantities of data, such as videos and photographs of your art, interviews with the artist, interviews with the gallerist, invoices, history of auction, history of shows, everything about the art that you want to have archived forever can be contained outside of the blockchain, but still in a secure manner and referenced back by the NFT. An example of how we see this in real life would be if you went to the New York City Public Library, you would go in the front doors and you'd see the card catalog. You'd open it up and take a card out. That card references a book. It could be a whole volume of books such as the Encyclopedia of World Art, which is actually 17 volumes, but it's one card. And that card is analogous to the NFT. The NFT can represent and reference something gigantic. I think it's worth taking a moment and talking about digital art as it relates to NFTs. When an artist creates a digital piece of art, there is no tangible physical form of that. It's completely virtual. So the NFT in that case carries all the value of the art. But you have a painting or a work on paper or a photograph. There's a lot of value in that tangible physical art. In this case, the NFT is being associated with that, which I think has value. And just like the car with the title, I think over time, and things are moving so quickly, it's not a lot of time, but 5-10 years, people are going to see that NFT as having a lot of value. I think in several years from now, you're not going to be able to sell the art without the NFT. So getting an NFT for physical art is quite different now than getting an NFT for digital art. It's quite different than buying cryptocurrency. Those are sort of speculative endeavors. I think you should view this as more as a utility, as a tool to enhance the physical art that you have. And in the very near future, people are going to look at our current protocol for purchasing art, which is really just a receipt or an invoice, and maybe on the back of a frame, the label from the gallery, as being something quite primitive. The NFT is a natural evolution of this process, and it is a better system than what we have now. Besides the NFT's ability to keep track of physical objects through documentation, they have the ability to even create new avenues of economic value. And that's done through the use of smart contracts. Some people actually define the NFT as being a smart contract. NFTs are computer code, and code is nothing more than an instruction. If this happens, then that happens. In a simple form in real life, visualize this as being a gumball machine. You put a quarter in, you turn the knob, and you get a gumball. The quarter stays inside, the gumball comes out the front. And what's beautiful about that is it's automatic and it's unemotional and happens every time. So with an NFT, you can add this functionality. You can have a smart contract to do whatever it is you want. The thing people are talking about now, which is extremely exciting, is royalties on secondary sales of the NFT. For instance, you can program the NFT. If and when it's transferred or sold, a portion of the proceeds goes somewhere. It could be to the artist, it could be a charity, it could be a charity for artists, whatever you want. But it's a very exciting option to add this functionality to the NFT, knowing that in the future it is going to be sold or transferred as the object passes on to the next owner. And even though it's called a smart contract, it's not smart enough to be legally binding. Contrary to what you read, the smart contract is not a legally binding contract. It's just a set of instructions. But going back to the gumball machine, I don't need a legally binding contract to get my gumball. I just know it happens and it's automatic. And that's one of the beautiful things about NFT. Things just happen. Speaking about legal things, ownership of an NFT does not inherently grant copyright or intellectual property rights to whatever digital assets the token represents. It's just the same thing as if you were buying the piece of art from the artist in paper form or a sculpture or a photograph. They retain the intellectual property rights, and don't think that getting an NFT gives you anything more. Unless, of course, you reference that in the smart contract or in an external legally binding contract and make your own deal to get the certain rights that you desire. The final thing to talk about are tags. Collectors collect. I should know because I am one. And I believe that very soon we're going to have a lot of NFTs and a lot of art. So at Provenance, we've created a system of marking the art through the use of electronic tags, which when scanned will immediately bring up and reference the NFT, which is in virtual space. These tags can be QR codes or RFID or NFC, which is similar to the technology you have in the credit card in your wallet. They're tamper-proof, so won't work if they're peeled off. They're archival, so won't damage the art. They don't require batteries and are easily readable by an iPhone. For security, it can be more elaborate and they can be encrypted and even involve two-point verification. In the future, we're going to have tags so small that they'll be the size of dust mites. They're called motes and they're less than 0.1 cubic millimeter in size. So what we have is this triangle where the art is tagged, and using an iPhone, it will bring up the NFT. The NFT has provisions of a smart contract and links to large files with all sorts of information documenting the provenance and authenticity of the art. The other triangle, of course, is the artist, gallerist, and the collector. And joining these two triangles together, I think we will create a much better system than currently exists to document and authenticate artwork.